Mic went on mute. But hello and welcome to ATS or TruckersMP, whatever you want to call it, since it's the online version of ATS, American Trucking Simulator. But today we're gonna be just driving around doing jobs, cause why not? And yeah, that's about it today. Yesterday, oh wow, there's actually, hang on, make it so you can see my game. I did that because otherwise, when I start up the game, you see my email, cause it's just how it works. What do you mean, please check plugins? Oh no. I dropped something. Oh. Hang on. There's a bug with this stuff. Either way, so as you can see, there's actually quite a bit of people. This is the EU server, if I'm not mistaken, but the US server, surprisingly, I've never seen that many people in the EU server for ATS. But today we'll be playing TruckersMP, like I just said. And yeah, if you didn't know, I'm actually the virtual trucking company, Viva. And yeah, why not? Because, yeah, just why not? You can, why not? It's the only thing is though, with this company, a lot of people hate it. Not really sure why, but I think it's because it's probably the most largest one and probably the most well-established one. But whatever. I am negative $1,800. That's great. Oh my god. All right, let's connect to the game and see if I have a job running. I hope I don't. And if you guys notice in the bottom left of the screen, there is a gauge. I actually had to manually edit that with JavaScript and Photoshop to say miles per hour and JavaScript so that it reads in miles per hour and not kilometers per hour. So, yeah, there's that. Let me fix something real quick. I don't think I can fix that. That's okay. Alright, so let's go back to the game, tap back into it. What am I marked? That's my question. What am I doing right now? Oh my lord. Oh, it's just marked 2, that's right. Okay, so let's do cargo market and let's see if we can get a there's this bug where literally if this stupid bug, I have to go sleep and then it'll work. It's really messed up, but whatever. And what's cool too is I'm actually driving with a steering wheel, but the only thing, oh, I guess shift is right. The only thing that sucks about my steering, fix my sound. The only thing that sucks about my steering wheel is the fact that I hit the wrong button. Damn it. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Oh yeah, what the hell did I gotta turn the engine on and put it on the battery. But the only thing that sucks about my steering wheel is the fact that the pedals are very stiff, because I've never used this thing that much, and I think that might be why. Other than that, the pedals are extremely stiff. I hope this is the right entrance. Seems to be. Yeah, we gotta sleep for it to work. It's really dumb how it is. And also, what really sucks about my pedals is not only is it really stiff. No, the gas one isn't too bad, but the brake one is very stiff, and I don't have a proper mount or anything for this, so it's just like, you know, chilling on top of like a box and stuff. But it actually makes more sense, and it won't move. But whatever. And yeah, I'm now 9,000 in debt. Cool. Dang. Ow. Stupid light strip's broken. Poking me. Let's go to maps. Let's check out what we got in the cargo market. I almost said freight market. Oh boy. There's some pretty good jobs we can get. What town am I in right now? So I mean, I want to even get one in Las Vegas or Prim. Even get one in Las Vegas. Oh, what do you know? But it's yeah, we can do the drive. Let's do it. I don't see why not. Oh, sorry. The most interesting thing about this is, oh no, I'm gonna screw that up. Yeah, no, I knew that was coming. The most interesting thing is that when I'm driving with a steering wheel, yet I don't have a license or anything yet, which I don't really feel like explaining why right now, but. No, not because I'm a bad driver or anything, but I just don't have one yet, and I drive okay, except for the fact that I drive really fast, but that's also more the fact because it's a video game, and not actually real life. Come on, trailer, don't get stuck. Okay, we're good. Yeah, you can see my trailer damage on the screen. The truck wear on the screen doesn't seem to like properly reflect the truck damage, and I'm not really sure why. But the trailer damage, that's all correct. Yeah. Yeah, the trailer damage thing on top of the gauge is just like the zoomed in part of the bottom right of the gauge, so. Also, it's still freaking raining since yesterday. Oh my god. Since like 10 hours ago. What in the world? More like 8, but. Ooh. Yeah, there's also like seems to be. Not really much of a dead zone, never mind. Jesus. Alright. There's one person watching on the mixer. Hello. Yeah. I'm currently streaming to like Mixer, Twitch, YouTube, and DLive. Why? Because why not? Maybe build a little bit more of a base. Because, I mean, I would prefer to only stream on YouTube, but because that's where most of my people are. Twitch is the best place for that. DLive is also a really good place. And Mixer, I don't know. I never really go in there. I just made an account and was like, whatever, see what happens. So, yeah. But still the chat set up for every platform, so that's cool. Use Restream. Either way, though, it's like, I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know what I was going to say there. Oh, I hate when the light turns green as I stop. Cool. But nah, I don't know. I kind of completely forgot what I was gonna say. But yeah, so my goal is to eventually get monetized again on YouTube. This is completely random, but why am I saying that? Because of the fact, the only problem is I don't meet the requirements at the moment, more because of the fact it's like, oh, you have to have 2,000 hours of watch time in 24 hours. I have, or 24 hours, 12 months. I'm close to that, but I'm not there yet. I meet every requirement except for that. And Twitch, I have no idea what the requirements are. I never really pay attention to that because I never really did too much on Twitch. I mean, I streamed on Twitch, but other than streaming on Twitch, I didn't really do a whole lot. Oh, I gotta turn up here. On the other lane. Let's pull up a little bit. Okay, we're good here. So I can't tell any people are watching in DLive because Restream put the stupid chat button over the marker for that, and I can't be bothered to. Actually, you know, I'll fix it when I pull up here in 3 miles. We've left the city? I thought I'm still in the city, but alright, you know. Whatever floats your boat, man. Oh, sir, there's the GPS navigation voice. Oh my god, is it so annoying. It's terrible. That's all I can say. It says too much. Like, it's like, keep to the left and turn left, or it says when you're passing an exit on the highway, keep left. And obviously, you're not going to take the exit, so you're not even taking the exit. It just wants you to stay left away from the exit. Like, well, obviously, don't tell me anything if I'm not going to take the exit. Oh, shoot. Yeah, I knew that was coming. Okay. Turn fast enough. I'm not a truck driver, so, I mean... yeah, that's a little bit of a problem, probably why. Alright, take job. There we go. Only 37,000. I wish I could get bigger jobs yet. Like, what in the world? What am I need to back up. I don't know what's going on. But I have the high value cargo, like, skills and stuff. The only thing is, though, is it doesn't seem to be doing too much. I mean, I'm gonna have to get more and more higher ranking first. Or not higher ranking, but like more skill sets. Not skill sets, but just skills in general. Because, you know, every time you rank up, you have a skill that you can add on to it. And I think I have to get more of those first. Okay, what I did to try and fix the restream thing didn't actually do. Well, I mean, that works. Yeah, okay. Sorry. Come on, the microphone won't mute. Hang on. There we go. Alright, there we go. So we gotta go 1,100 miles. That's great. It's gonna be a long trip. Oh. I just I moved the thing so I can see how many people are watching on D Live, and yet it doesn't even tell me. That's great. Great, nice restream. Nice. Whatever. Alright. It's yeah, what do you mean park and brake engage? What is it? Gotta back up, damn it. I wish stupid mouse wouldn't move every time I move the stupid steering wheel. Everything just shakes on my desk. Oh my god. Oh my god. I hate these stupid like parking lots. They're so small. Like, they shouldn't be for trailers like mine. They probably aren't, but you know. Oh shoot. Oh, come on. Just get slower. I don't care. Come on, get out of there. Yeah, there we go. Right here. Yeah, watch. If I'm gonna turn off my wipers, you're gonna see the rain will actually collect on the windshield. I mean, is realistic, and the rain looks pretty dang realistic, honestly. I don't really know how, but it just does. Oh, there we go. Also, I like how if you guys ever play with a steering wheel, you'll notice, and if it's not like a cheap, crappy steering wheel, mine came with my Xbox One. What, 5-6 years ago now, which is crazy to think about, but decent steering wheel, and it's a Thrustmaster, decent quality. But you'll notice, like mine's, I guess, good quality one. You'll feel the road in the steering wheel. So like, it'll shake when you're doing that. When you're driving over stuff, the steering wheel, you'll feel that. And when the engine turns off and you have no electrical power, you'll feel you have to hold. You could feel the weight of the truck even when driving. It's all a very cool experience. Why the lights loading only so like not that far in front of me? I probably have to turn my settings up, but I don't know why. But this game doesn't run that great even on my 1070. But I think that's more the fact of my CPU, because it might not be. I don't know. I have a little crappy CPU. Sorry about that. I hate coughing when the microphone's on, but you know, sometimes it happens. I don't want you guys to like be ear raped or anything, so ain't no fun experience. Where's my phone? Where's my phone? Whoa. Yeah, see, you can tell when I'm looking at my phone, because it's like I looked at it for a second and then I kind of swerved. That changed. No one saw that. No one saw the red light change when I was halfway through it. Don't worry about it. Yeah, and if you watched yesterday, we had quite a bit of events happening. We had a guy hit me on the other side of the road. That's more towards the end of the live stream. You gotta be kidding me. So it's more towards the end of the stream. So if you guys want to see it, you can look at the end of the stream. But what had happened was, I believe he was trying to overtake, but didn't pay attention at all to the who was coming. And in the event, literally head-on collision to me. But what was weird was he turned into me. I mean, yeah, it makes sense, but I don't know. I reported him because he was obviously in the wrong there, because you have to pay attention. You gotta be careful when crossing on a, like, 2-lane road, one going one way and one going the other, so, yeah, apparently, I uploaded the video to the moderators, or the support, same thing, really, but, and he got banned for 5 days, yep, I think, yeah, 5 days, so, I mean, rip him, but learn to drive right. What I can say. If you drive right, or if you are sincerely sorry, or something like that, or you know, or if I clearly know it was a complete accident, then you know, and I probably won't report you. But if you are not paying attention like that, and you're driving like exact same speed as your other friend there, nah. All right, I think we're hopping on the. Yeah, we're on the highway now. I'll put cruise control on. It's nice having cruise control because you don't have to like Feel your leg. I don't really know what else to say other than like, oh yeah, yada yada yada. I'm gonna have to end up passing this guy, cause you know, my truck is going pretty fast, honestly. What in tarnation? Oh, I thought he was on like the whole other side of the road. I was gonna say, man. Alright, he seems to be driving properly. I think we're good. I slowed down because it looked like he was going nuts. Alright, I like put my wipers back on. That might help me a little bit. Alright, I'm not passing him any time right now, guy. Okay, what's he doing? Kind of looks like a drunk driver driving right now, but you know, I'm probably doing the same thing. Yeah, like from here, it looks like he's on the other side of the road, but honestly, he probably isn't. I'm not sure why it looks like that. This is someone's watching on Mixer, and I have no idea if they are or not. And if they are, cool. If not, cool. Every time I ask someone to say something, they're like, "Oh, are you watching? Say something," and they never say anything. So I'm pretty sure it's always just like a bot or something stupid. Yeah, I'm definitely past this guy. High beams time. Alright. Does he even have his lights on, or is that just my... I don't know. I think he has lights on, yeah. Yeah, his lights on. Just wasn't rendering in my mirror. I swear to God, if it makes me call in for inspection, I'm gonna be mad. Don't make me call in for inspection. Don't do it. Huh, it didn't even prompt it. Maybe that's not inspection. That's strange. Okay. Whatever. I'm going a lot faster than that guy. I wonder. He must have a heavy cargo, or he's... I have no idea, but I'm only going like 2 miles an hour over the speed limit, so it ain't that much. Oh my God, this road goes down to 2 lanes. What the hell? Oh, jeez. Oh, I'm a little over the road. Let's not do that. Boy. Got 20 hours left, which is more like 30 minutes. I think. Timing's weird. You notice it's like the minutes go down really randomly. Almost like every second, but almost every 2 seconds. Or a second and a half. So it's really like 30-40 minutes. At least that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if the time calculates the speed as well. Like calculates or factors into the speed. Maybe. I'm not really sure. So I have to be cautious. If I see any turn going crazy up on the map, I have to be cautious because yesterday I flipped the truck like 5 times the same spot because I was being an idiot. Freaking, and that's why I'm in debt. Yep. I don't know, I think I was way overtired and I was just like, it's fine. Bam! 5 times in a row. Alright, I gotta slow down a minute. I'm doing 80 and a 30. Yeah, that's not good. I wonder if that guy's anywhere close. I don't think he is. On the road again. Keep on trucking on the road again. Alright. Oops. Also, if you're watching and like you're like, oh, where are the YouTube videos and whatnot? Well, I've been busy. Not so much busy, but more lazy. But during the school year, I'm pretty busy. Not much. But I want to get videos out again, but it ain't easy, that's for sure. Oh man, I'm gonna get a job soon or anything like that, and it's just gonna be great. Not really, but it'd be cool to have YouTube even as a side job or a job in general. But you have to get pretty high. Gotta get pretty high in YouTube for that. But until then, if then, ever. Yeah. So I'm gonna try to get out videos. I don't know if I should only do gaming because you know. I feel like that stuff probably gets older after a while, but I don't really know what I should do. That's the only thing. I started the channel back in 2012 when I was 9, Jesus. And 7 years ago now. But even just, I'm like, oh, I'll upload simple gaming videos. Like, I remember my first videos were Roblox. I recorded it with the in-game recorder. And I think it exported it that way. And oh my god, it was so bad. It was like a few FPS. But yeah, it was just a kick started off, and then started doing more videos. I started doing Minecraft a little bit. Started doing other gaming videos, and this is when at one point I was like, you know, I really want to do this, and I tried. Every time I've noticed too is that when I actually tried before and I edited my videos using like what did I use? Premiere Pro? Premiere Pro. And I used that to edit my videos, and when I edited my videos, I got tons of views. And people were like, that's cool. But then every time I was just like, oh, I'm not gonna edit the video, I got like very minimal views. Like one of my most, well, like all my edited videos, those are the ones that are successful. And yeah. The only thing is though, it's like it does take time to edit, and I gotta find the game I want to edit. And plus, if I do videos, it certainly ain't gonna be every day. At least in the beginning, it might be like, I don't know, like maybe twice a week, maybe twice a week, and then it's like live streaming on the weekends, because I do like live streaming. It's always nice because just raw. People can ask questions if they want to, because I know no one will, because honestly, who watches like that? But other than that, it's like, oh, that's cool. Yeah. I don't know. I'm still happy I'm still happy I made my channel back then, because when, at a time, I'm pretty sure it's still the same where if you have 100 subscribers, you can get like custom YouTube URL channeling instead of like youtube.com/channel/gibberish characters. But instead, they made it, at the time, instead of getting nowadays, you can only reserve a youtube.com/c/whatever name. At the time, I reserved, I think this is like in 2015 I reserved this, so they still had it then. I reserved youtube.com/ider. No /c. It still works if you go to /c, but mine works if you go to just youtube.com/ider, and that's really cool. That's always nice to have. It just seems cool. But I've always wanted to do YouTube for a while. It just takes time to edit. And then I noticed my most popular video is it's, I don't know if I put the least amount of effort in it or most amount of effort. I don't know. It's just cringe to watch my videos. It's been 3 years since I put that video up, and it's got like over 100,000 views now, which is insane. I think it's over 100,000 views. I can't remember, but if that was monetized, oh my god, I could get a lot of money actually. But that's besides the point. It's the fact that that video still gets tons of views to this day, and that's the only reason why my channel has so many watch time minutes on it. It was just a simple. This is when I was playing Roblox and Xbox One, and this was when Roblox was just first released on Xbox One, like really recently at the time. And the video was titled "Roblox and Xbox One has voice chat on question," and people are like, "Nah, it's fake." Nah, and some people are saying, "Oh, it's back." The thing is, though, is that there's no way that could have been fake. Well, I mean, it could have been, but it wasn't. And the only reason why it wasn't was because I wasn't in no party. I don't know how. I didn't add it over. How would I be talking to someone adding over? Like, that doesn't make sense. But I don't know. And that was a really dumb idea in their choice. Like, oh, let's add voice chat. Yeah, because you can filter voice chat. Definitely. So that's my view on that. Why that was probably removed, if it was removed. Why people were saying, oh, it's fake. It's not. I remember I joined into a game. I think it would Stop It Son, and I joined into the game, and then heard someone talking. I'm like, what? And I got real confused because I wasn't talking to nobody beforehand. I wasn't in a call. I just heard someone, and I got real confused. I mean, yeah. I mean that's kind of it. I wasn't expecting it. I was just more showing it off, like, oh look at that. Let's try it for the first time ever and see how bad it is or how good it is. I like to say how bad it is because I don't know why, but it wasn't too bad. It runs just like if you played it with a controller and the computer. And my high beam's off. And yeah, that's about it. I don't know. Yeah, it was fun. I got my channel going. The only thing is though, is it just I don't know. I don't really know what else to upload. I mean, I might upload some new videos. Maybe I'll do Minecraft again because it'd be cool. But the only problem is that if I do videos, it's like my friends are like, nah, I don't really want my voice in there. I'm just like, yeah. So that's a little bit of a problem. Like yesterday when I was playing this game with friends and whatnot, the reason why you didn't hear me was because I was talking in voice, and they don't really like having their voice in the stream, and I respect that because you gotta be nice. And yeah, so all I had was just the game sounds because I use, and you're probably asking like, how did you make it so you can only hear the game sounds and not like, and I am using OBS, so you're probably asking like, how did you make it only the game sounds and not hear you or them? Well, use Voicemeeter. If you don't know what that is, look it up. It's a great tool for managing your voice and having like 2 split audio channels. There's other versions where you can have like God knows how many channel splits, and it's just Voicemeeter Banana is the best one in my opinion. Voicemeeter Potato is interesting, but yeah, like I can split up the voice chat with the game sounds and system. Well, I can split up the system sounds with the voice. Oh god, with the voice sounds. So I have them in 2 different channels, which is always nice because then if you want to share your audio with your computer audio, you don't have to share their voice, which likes feedback. I don't. Well, not who likes audio feedback is what I should say. I don't. I'm not going to be playing for a long time today. Well, right now. I will possibly be coming back on tonight, like late, like I did last night, but we'll find out. I have a mail and I don't have time to check it, and I have to get gas the next time I go to a gas station. That's great. Ooh, it's a little sharp return. I don't like this. Okay, we're good. I'm getting like really weird lag spikes. I don't really know why. Like it just slows down some parts, and it's really weird. But at nighttime, I always seem to get 60 FPS, like I am right now. But I don't know. For some reason, it doesn't feel like 60 FPS. Even at like 30 or 40 FPS, this game feels like it's 60. It's really weird. Whatever though. Well, it is my problem, so I don't know what I'm talking about. Oh, the rain's picking up. You gotta be kidding me. I gotta turn the wipers up. Oh shoot. That wipers are up. Oh my god, the rain's really coming down. I never had it come down this fast. I have to put them like really high. Holy crap. Dang. Available space in the middle of nowhere. Whoa. Yeah, so hopefully my voice isn't cutting out, because I tried to make it so it sounds fine. I have to slow down, because oh no. Ooh, they could have been real bad. Ooh, yeah. So I was trying to turn and I hit the brakes. Don't do that. That's why I crashed like 5 times yesterday. Okay, I can put cruise control back on. I don't have to do no manual crap. I still don't understand the truck wear percentage. Like, if you look here in the F7, there you go. It says 6%. So it's like I really don't understand the truckware at all. I don't. Maybe it's something completely different, and it's a whole nother meter it doesn't tell me about. It beats me. The trailer damage is accurate, so I mean, it also tells you like about the trailer. I'm not sure if you can read that or not. You say, it tells you what's in the trailer, and it tells you, I think it says 16 tons. I think that's what it stands for, 16T. I might not be 100% accurate on that one, but I'm gonna assume so. Also, I don't know why all the streaming platforms are yelling at me. They're all saying warning. Hang on, let me check what's going on. I might be streaming too high bit rate or something, which is fairly possible. Where's the keyframe off again? Man. Warning. Oh, come on, the keyframe interval's off. Whatever. I'll fix it for next stream. I fixed it yesterday. I don't really... Oh, it changed. That's right. So we want 2. Let's apply. Ah, there we go. I don't think that's going to edit it. If I edit it right now, it might. But I highly doubt it. If it does, that's cool. That's cool too. Okay, we're back on the road again. Oh, parking brake gear. Thank you, Veggie. Yeah, ignore that little stop right there. You didn't see nothing. You didn't hear nothing. Don't worry about it. Oops. Okay. I had to turn my cruise control over. Nobody wants to cruise at 20 miles an hour. No. Unless you have to. Also, TruckersMP, which is it's I assume it stands for Truckers Multiplayer. Oh my god. Why am I yawning? Either way though, so they released a teaser kind of video before, or I think earlier this week, and it was weird because it showed like an accident and like utility stuff. So it makes me think, oh, maybe they'll have traffic, or oh, like because maybe it's could have been a result of a crash, or maybe it's like, oh, you can do different jobs. Now, I don't really know what that's about, because just recently they updated a virtual truck. They released a virtual trucking company, like, I guess, directory on their site. At least what I got from it. Like, people, like the actual virtual trucking companies can list their crap there and their companies. But other than that, I'm not really sure about that. What the video is about. Not sure. So I wish people actually watch my videos, but whatever. I watch my pre-record stuff. Like my most popular videos are some of my Roblox videos and some of my Black MIDI piano fall MIDI videos. The Nyan Troll one was still fairly popular, and yeah, I don't really know. All right, I need to get gas. All right, engine off. I just have it running on the. Oh, okay. I have it just running on the battery. That's why it still looks like it's on, but it's not. Oh, cool. We're good to go. Aha! All right, let's go. I am so much in debt. I am $9,400 in debt. This is bad. I got so many friggin' loans out, and the rain's pouring. Coming down hard. Holy crap. Encoding overload? What are you talking about? Nah. Oh my god, my computer is trash. Well, my computer itself ain't too bad. It's the CPU in it is... Could be... yawning, it could be better. I'm just trying to think about things to talk about, because, I assume that's gotta be pretty boring, just sitting there being like, oh, he's driving, and all I can hear is the truck. Cool. So, I mean, talking helps, helps keep engaged, and helps you just listen along and be like, oh, that's cool. Let's do a podcast while trucking. No, that's not. Maybe if I was a real trucker, maybe, but no. I'm good. You know, it would be kind of cool to do actual trucking as a job, but that's not my kind of cup of tea, I don't think. I mean, I'm more into like technology, programming, and physics games, but I'm more into like technology, and just even old technology is fun to mess around with, but yeah, so I don't know if trucking exactly my cup of tea. I mean, it's fun. Like, I'm doing it right now, and I certainly enjoy it because you get to see a lot of cool stuff, and I mean, it's just cool. You get to drive everywhere. You get to probably see a lot of things you normally wouldn't see because it's like, oh, you normally have a job that's you have to be there every day during the week or even on the weekends sometimes, and you gotta stay in town unless you do vacation time. Trucking, you can go all across. You can probably hit almost every 50 state except for probably Alaska, because you know, unless you drive through Canada. I mean, I don't even know if truckers go up there. But either way, so like you can drive around a lot of the states, honestly. And I mean, you get paid pretty good, especially the longer you go. And if you have your own truck, that could be something cool too. But I know someone in my family has well, they do trucking. I think they own their own truck. Could be wrong on that, but they do this run all the time. So there's like this one run from a place, whatever, and so it has to be done all the time, and it's always all the time. But the thing is, he gets paid a lot for it because no one will do it because everybody's scared to do the route because the traffic's terrible, or where like it has to go and stuff like that. Only thing is though why he takes it is because he grew up in the destination city, I believe. So he knows the traffic, he knows around how to get around well. So works out. It's pretty cool. You get quite a bit of money from it too. We are 733 miles out. Yeah, I think it's been a lot longer than a half hour or something. So, or maybe it's only been like 20. I'm not actually sure. No. Yep. Long drive. You see, look, I think the truck wear is going up. No, it says 18% now. Wasn't it only at like 13 before, or am I just not? I have no idea. Wasn't really paying attention. Not paying attention to the road. Man, no one's watching. I'm a little disappointed though. Whatever. It's still fun streaming. We're just hanging out. Plus, it's also a really good idea to stream because, well, you could either have I don't think it's called Shadowplay. Is not what I'm thinking about at all. Instant capture. You could have that on for NVIDIA, and that would be like, oh, you can set to do like anywhere from like a fourth of a minute, like you'll say 0.25 minutes, like 10 minutes, I want to say, where it'll keep that recorded, those past 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever recorded, and it'll keep recording over it until you click save. And what that's good for is, like, say earlier when I got into the crash of the game, I could have saved it, but my computer for some reason hates that, and as soon as I enable it, it just, the monitors start like disconnect. Well, they don't disconnect, they flash, like the graphics card just freaks out, and it's a whole mess, and it just doesn't work. Oops, it just doesn't work right for some reason. So OBS though, and OBS runs just fine for some reason, and it's running at a higher bit rate, I think, than the video itself. Or no, it's not actually. The video was the one to record like 10,000 kilobits. Yeah, something like that. So, okay, so I mean like, yeah, and I'm streaming at like 8,000, though 6,000 is the minimum, and Twitch is like, do 6,000. I'm like, I don't care. I'm gonna do 8,000 because it keeps it more stable, at least in my opinion, for YouTube. Literally everything else. Because DLive and YouTube accept it a little higher. Twitch is like, no, I don't care. It's a whole, and oh, Mixer does too. Mixer, yeah, accepts it. I'm fine. Only problem is Twitch, because you know Twitch is yeah, it's really neat. But yeah, if I could fix this lag from like 47 FPS, I would. But you know, it doesn't seem to like it. Okay, why did I go on the highway for like a few miles and then now have to get off the highway? I've also been on this highway before. Well, not IRL, obviously, because I don't really travel that far. I'm on the East Coast, and this is on the West Coast. So, there's a big difference. Oh my god. Oh, slow down. See, the pedals are like so, not touchy, but like it doesn't do much until like, I knew that was coming. The pedals don't do much until I, like actually, go really hard in them, but, right. Yeah, I didn't stop in time. If I had a proper mount and like setup for my steering wheel and pedals, I could probably do it really easily. Because, you know, it'd be mounted down, and I wouldn't have to deal with like, oh, trying to hold it down with my other foot, because if I don't, the whole thing lifts up and it falls over, and then I have no pedal access. So, yeah, it's something, alright. That's for sure. Also, if you noticed how on right now where it says under the miles per hour indicator on the bottom left of the screen, it says 69. It should say 70, but the thing is the game reports in kilometers per hour, and you have to convert that to miles per hour, and it doesn't convert perfectly. It rounds down, unfortunately, and when it rounds down, obviously you get one number less. So whatever, though, it really doesn't matter. It's close enough. It's like 1 mile an hour off. I could care less. It was like before when it was so off because it's, yeah, I had, okay, so that UI right there, except for the red lines, that's all Photoshop, and I had to change the KMH to MPH, and so that's why the MPH might look a little off, because I didn't care enough to align it, honestly. So, and then I had to went to the JavaScript code, and I looked up on a forum, like, is this possible? And someone was like, yeah, just do the multiplication. I'm like, okay. Yeah, because I actually code in JavaScript and Node.js. More Node.js than JavaScript. I do very simplistic front end. Like, if someone had the design already set up for the front end, but it wasn't functional, I could definitely set that up. It's more just I'm not the best when it comes to CSS and like HTML designing. But if you tell me, oh, go make this site, and it's like complicated, I could make it. It'll be functional. It just probably won't look pretty. But hey, I mean, would you rather a functional site or a great-looking crap site? You'd probably rather a great-looking good site. I know what you're saying. Yeah, I have no idea when I'm leaving, honestly. I think it probably won't be for like another 2 hours. Just, you know, I don't know. We always go to places really late for some reason. I have no idea why. It's because, oh! they're like, we don't want to be the first ones there. Well, you don't want to be the last ones there either. Or like the first ones to get there when someone's leaving already. It's like, we'll get to like an hour too late sometimes, and it's ridiculous, that's for sure. I'm gonna pull over real quick. Oh, you didn't see that. Oh, now I gotta visit service. That means the engine's gonna start malfunctioning. Get disconnected from the game. Press tab. I mean, I'm nowhere close to anybody, so I mean, and the time is going super slow. So I have a feeling I did not get disconnected, because otherwise, it yeah. Alright, cool. We are back. Let's get going on the road. Visit service. Yeah, I don't think I'm anywhere near a gas station or a service station, so I mean it's gonna be a little bit. Alright, we'll turn on cruise control again, turn on the flashers. Oh, cruise control been enabled, nice. Oh yeah, truck wear, 43%, maybe? Hang on. What's the damage at right now? Not 43%, that's for sure. Maybe, I'm gonna say maybe I multiplied the wrong thing and the truck wear is like, oh, almost dropped the phone. Maybe the truck wear I accidentally multiplied it, or need to divide it or something like that. Which is, very possible. But I have no idea. I'll have to look at it later. Oh my god, it does not like this hill at all. Yeah, this is still like this is like the stock truck. I don't remember if it upgraded or not or anything yet. But if not, let's I think I might upgrade the transmission once, but I think my profile got overwritten and it didn't happen. I can't remember. But I am literally in the middle of nowhere with how much gas left? I don't know. It doesn't tell me anywhere because like it says visit service, so that's overlaid, and the little gauge over there doesn't actually, like on the screen, doesn't actually tell me how much gas miles I got left. Which sucks. Oh, what in the hell? Yo, you can't pass on double line roads. Are you serious? Idiot. You can't pass on double line roads. You guys cannot pass on double line roads. I'm not gonna report it because he didn't crash like that, but that's really not that. This is where you can cross. You can pass right here though, but you couldn't do it in the double line. Idiots. Cruising though. I'm really surprised that I saw some out here because like it's like literally the middle of nowhere. Oh my god. You saw nothing. Maybe he crashed or something. Oh, he probably ran over a sign or something. Oh shoot, I'm going 92. Woo! It's a little fast. I might want to, you know, slow down just a little bit. Oh shoot, yeah, they are not going that fast up here. What's he pulled over for? Alright. I wonder if it's raining for anybody else. I mean, apparently that sinks, but I don't know. I turned the rain chances up to max, so maybe that's why it's still raining. I'm getting lazy of driving, but what is that supposed to mean, lazy of driving? I'm not really sure on that one. Whatever. I don't really know what to say, but yeah. Hang on, I want to see something. Images 15. Hey Google, what's 43 divided by 15? 2.867. So, I mean, it doesn't seem like it's a. Yeah, obviously it's not. I could tell from the beginning it's not a. What's he doing an ID check for? No, ID check? What? I have no idea what this guy's talking about. Whatever. Wait, are they even near me? Oh no, they're nowhere near me anymore. Also, I'm not sure if when you're driving, obviously when you're driving, I'm not sure if oh they're coming up behind me. Jesus. I'm not 100% sure if, I have no idea what the hell I was gonna say, honestly. What was I gonna say? Oh, he's coming up behind me. What the heck? I'm not 100... What? I don't know what I was gonna say now, and I just completely blanked, so... I don't know. Oh yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I'm not 100% sure if, like, the text chat is global or only for people near you, like, the voices. Because the CB radio only goes as far as people you can see, which says near you, which I think is like 800 meters away at max. I could be wrong. I'm going 80 and a 65, so I mean, I'm going plenty fast enough for this guy to stay behind me. Oh, come on. Where's the weight station on the right side? You gotta be kidding me. The weight station isn't even, you know what? No, the weight station isn't even for my, the way I'm going, so you can screw off. If you charge me, I'd be mad though. Don't you dare charge me. I'm not even going that way. Don't even charge me. Don't even charge me. I will be mad if you charge me. Don't charge me for passing it, because I did not pass it. You suck. Maybe I was actually supposed to go there no matter whatever. I don't even care. That doesn't make sense because that wasn't towards my way I was going. Whatever. I guess next time, no matter what, if he yells at me, I gotta do it. Okay. On the road again. You are trucking on the road again. Alright. You can do some really weird noises. It's, yeah. Why? Who knows? Oh god, one of my friends is playing VR chat. That's... oh god. Rip. Yeah, no one's watching my stream, so yeah, cool. Whatever, I don't really care, honestly. I do and don't. Oh, come on. It would be cool if someone was watching my stream, though, but... whatever. There we go. Engine. I think maybe when I go to my next stop, I'm gonna put the rain chances to half, because while it is cool to have the rain, this is a very long time to have the rain. Also, it's been like 30-40 minutes now of this trip. I severely underestimated the time it would take. That's okay though. I got nothing better to do, honestly. Like, I've been... I mean, I could be doing other stuff. I could, you know, maybe on a job right now, but I've been putting it off, but I don't want to put it off, because as soon as I don't put it off anymore, I'll be able to get a car, and then, you know, well, I'll be able to get my license in the first place, which is ridiculous. Because literally in like 1 month, less than 30 days, I would have been old enough to already have my license. Yep. It's the kind of rules I have where I hate some of the rules. Wait, hang on a second. What? Oh my, I just discovered there are buttons on the back of my steering wheel. There are 2 little buttons on the... you gotta be kidding me. Oh, I could have used these buttons had I known they were there. You gotta be kidding me though. Ridiculous. Is my lights control yet? Whatever. I've been streaming for 55 minutes. That's cool. Oh, I might just slow down. Let me turn off tab, because, you know, Yeah, I am gonna have to actually slow down. There's an intersection up here, and also too, it's, you know, a city. It's supposed to go like 35, going like, yeah, not 35. Oh, there's a gas station up here. I'm gonna say it's probably a smart idea to go and grab gas. Because, you know, I have no idea how many miles I got left. And I'm at like half a tank, so I think. Something like that. Yep. Hang on, while I'm right here, I'm gonna turn down the rain intensity. Hang on. Alright, let's go here. Mail, what have we got in here? Yeah, I know. Options, gameplay, I think. The rain stuff. Automatic fuel or realistic fuel consumption. I enabled that, and I don't remember what that does. I certainly passed it, and I don't know. Ah, there it is. Rain probability. We'll put that to like half. Detours and random events. Those are no. I'm good. Navigation mode. Best, shortest, or small roads. Interesting. I did not know you can change that. I mean, it makes sense that you can change that, but I did not know you could change the game. There we go. 408 miles left to go. Oh, someone pinged me. Hang on. I gotta watch out. Oh no, the game's gonna crash. The game's gonna crash. Yep, and it crashed. Oh, this game does it sometimes when you tab out and tab back into it. I have to not show my game screen when I turn on the game because it shows my email because of how it logs in. Whatever. ATS. Come on. You're gonna hear the game sounds for a second. Won't be able to see. I know. Be aware. Oh, someone's watching on Twitch. Hello, Twitch viewer. I'm just rebooting. I'm restarting the game. Oh, and they're not watching anymore. Disappointment for 100, please. Alright, log in. Logged in now. I can show you my game. And let's go back into the game. Wow, yeah, more people are going to the US because it's weird because it seems like the US people in the US don't seem to join until like late, like 8 o'clock and later, like 8 p.m. and later Eastern Standard Time. That's when the game starts blowing up with people. Like there'll be like 600 to 800 plus people, and it's ridiculous. That's for sure. Dude, waiting for drive. I keep getting achievements for literally everywhere. I mean, that's cool, but I'm all the way back here? You gotta be kidding me. That's stupid. Yeah, half the time when I crash, it brings me back like a lot of miles. Not really sure why at all, but it's quite fairly annoying. Thing, you know. English, well. Ooh, maybe next next time I play this, I'm gonna stream it to Facebook, because, you know, why not? Oh my god. Yeah, the only problem with that is people be like, why are you up so late? Why are you up at like midnight playing the game? I'll be like, and that's the only reason why I don't want to stream to Facebook. And plus, I normally wouldn't stream to Facebook. I only do it for the heck of it. So if people wanted to watch me driving a truck, like, I don't know if that's a good idea to mixing in Mixer, Twitch, YouTube, DLive, and Facebook. Oh my god, a lot of platforms. I wonder if there's any other platforms I can stream to. I know there's Mob Crush I can stream too, but I'm pretty sure that's like for mobile gaming specifically. I think. I never really looked into it. I just know it's a thing. It was on the Restream panel, so I was like, oh, what's this? Oh, it's a streaming platform for mobile. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. I hope my microphone sounds good, because if it doesn't sound good and it sounds fuzzy, then that's it sucks. Because this should be a good quality microphone. I know you guys are like, oh, Blue Yetis suck. Yeah, I know. I know there's better mics out there, but Blue Yetis they're not too bad. You can also, it's the fun part about Blue Yetis is that you can turn the gain up and just, blast whoever eardrums you want out. Yeah. Not that I do that often, but it's fun. Also nice you can turn the gain up, so like if you're walking across, oh, I gotta yawn, hang on. But it's always nice because with the gain, like an actual like useful reason for it is when I'm on like doing something across the room and I'm like trying to talk to people in my headphones, and I'm like, oh, and then so I can turn the gain up so they can hear me a little bit better instead of like cutting out far away. So makes sense. Only thing that sucks about dedicated microphone is you gotta find a good place to put it that doesn't get in the way of your monitors, doesn't get in the way of your keyboard, doesn't get in the way of you, and it's yeah, it's something, all right. There's no service station around, is there? Nope, that's okay. We're not too badly damaged, so I mean, it ain't that bad. Nope, I was gonna say that was red. I think it changed. Manual driving for now. Oh, I just realized it's not really raining anymore. Yeah, well, it is still raining a little bit. I just gotta put my my wipers on as low as they go. Then, yeah. Yeah, I realized earlier too. I'm just like, oh, I was like, just I can now live streaming my terrible driving. And I mean, it ain't that bad, but it ain't the best driving ever. Alright, let's keep going. But, whatever. As long as I don't crash into anybody or something like that, or I'm not driving on the wrong side of the road constantly, then I mean, I should be okay and not get banned. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. There we go. Figures the engine functions going up a hill. Great. Oh, God. I've never had a load that's so large that would not kill the engine, but overheat the engine. That'd be kind of cool to do because I've never had to experience that in the game yet. But it also would be kind of bad in the sense where I could screw up. But yeah, I have no idea what time I'm leaving. I was assuming to leaving around 12 to 1. It's now 12:30, and I have literally zero update of when I'm leaving. Cool. Oh my God, I'm yawning again. Why am I still yawning? It's 12:21. I thought I read 12:30 for some reason. But I'm yawning. Cool. Actually, hang on. I want to do something real quick. I might get kicked for an activity. I'll know if I get kicked for an activity. You'll tell me in a second. I'm gonna go. I'm rolling, aren't I? I like I was rolling. I'm gonna do something real quick. Oh, I almost knocked my pedals over. Viva Trucking has this section for streamers, I think. Yes. And I should probably join that because I'm live streaming. Streamer perks. I get perks. Wow. It must be at least 30 FPS at 720p, mate. I'm doing 1080p, 40, 50 FPS because like speak English fluently, yes. Obtain a driver rank, yep. is respectful and responsible. I mean, yeah, try. Join today. Google Docs submission. That's cool. What's your name? Are you a member of Viva Trucking? Yes. Are you ranked driver hire? Yes. Next. Part 1. What is your profile for Viva Driver Hub? Give me a second. Link it, not just give you the ID. Ooh. Very cool. What is your true? It must have bands public. I just realized something, and actually no, I think I actually made it so my bans are public. I don't have any. But if I did that, that's probably why they didn't contact me. Oh no, my bans are not public, and they still accepted me. Interesting. Bans, yep. Oh, I most likely got kicked now. Hello, Twitch viewer. I know someone's watching. I'm just setting up something on Viva Trucking real quick. Hang on. Hang on. Alright, so that's cool. YouTube, was that YouTube gaming? Okay, yes. Yeah, and I'll link my my Twitch and my YouTube onto it. But why not? Alright, cool. So if you guys chat in the chat, I'll be able to see it and I'll be able to reply and yada yada yada. Ooh. Upload avatar. I don't think I have the file saved on my computer, do I, for my avatar? Might. Very well might. I also might as well. I might not. Oh, I do. There it is. Save changes. Cool. What does it want to link again? It wants a link to my Viva profile. Cool. Where's TruckersMP profile? Not my Viva. What is your streaming channel? YouTube and Twitch. Whoops, I misspelled HTTPS. Oh my god. That'd be cool. Every time I'm streaming, people will be able to see me though. What do you stream on? Twitch, YouTube, Mixer. I'll just say Twitch. Yeah, whatever. Probably makes it easier for them. What country are you from? USA, I guess. I don't know. Time zone. Eastern. I can't type. Eastern time. Why do you want to join it? Give 50. What? I am most definitely. Hang on. Only 32 words. It's not enough. I gave a really garbage. Well, I don't want to say garbage. Dreamer program. Why I want to join? Whatever. I mean, what do you mean? Oh, it's a whole other page. At the time, how many total followers do you have? I don't friggin' know, man. I don't. Who knows? 41. It's more than I thought. What is your average viewer count? I don't friggin' know, man. A few. Respectful? Yes. Do you fleek? Yes, I don't. I stutter a lot, apparently. I'm jumble my English, but yes. I have any bands? No. Are you able to stream a few times a week? Maybe. Yes, 720p, I can do that fine. Are you willing to display the Viva logo, website link, and channel? Yeah, I'm fine with that. That'd be kind of cool. Why can't I click? There it goes. You were asked to show a screenshot of your monthly week's statistics. Yeah, I'm fine with that. I don't really care. You understand that you may be denied for any reason? Yeah. You understand that if your sub is yes. Do you understand that when streaming you remain professional all the time, failure to do so remain yeah, that makes sense. Did I fill it honestly and accurately? Yeah. Next. And submit. 48 hours. Woo! Enjoy your day or night. That's cool. Alright, I wonder how many jobs I have that I have to verify in my tracker. I got 4. Alright. No idea if I'm AFK kicked or not, but let's hope not. Strange. Alright, let's get on trucking again. It is very foggy. Yeah, foggy, so I'm gonna put these lights on. So I've never really seen anybody else stream on Viva, so or at least I never really paid attention to it, so that's probably why. Maybe they do later on in the day, like when I said when people start going, actually playing and stuff. Maybe. Who knows? Also, hello to that one person still watching on Twitch. I don't think it's me watching my own stream. I don't have it open anywhere, so. Oh, my beam's off. You guys coming up. But if you're watching on Twitch, because I see someone is, say hi in the chat and I'll say hi back to you if you want. My truck is doing awful on this hill. Holy crap. Surprised it ain't overheating, man. Oh, and we're going downhill now. Cool. But yeah, I guess I didn't get AFK kicked, because apparently when you tap out of the game for like 30 seconds you get AFK kicked, which is interesting, because I was tabbed out for a lot more than 30 seconds. I don't know. But I also think if you're AFK for like 5, I think it's 5 minutes, but it could be 15 minutes. If you're AFK for that long, then it automatically just AFK kicks you. Either way, so like you don't touch your keyboard or anything. Or sometimes even if you're in the menu, which is interesting. I think the worst part is like you have to like pretty much restart your game. But at least it doesn't take forever to load the game like some games do. Oh boy, this is gonna be a bad turn. Hang on. I have to slow down for this turn. When I look at the map, that looks like a pretty sharp turn. How slow am I supposed to go? 35? Yeah. I'm certainly not going 35. I mean, I could go a little faster than that if I wanted to, but you know. I'm good. It's weird how the meter for how fast I'm going above the miles per hour symbol in the bottom left, that's accurate, but the cruise controlling it, whatever. Weird. I probably did something wrong. I probably did the wrong like math.floor or rounding, whatever. If you don't know what I mean, then you don't know JavaScript. That's okay. If you do know what I mean, that's cool too, I guess. I could care less either way, honestly, right now. So. Yeah. So I'm shining on the floor. I was like, what's that? Yes. I might turn the wipers up a little bit. Yeah. Let's turn those up to a not the highest speed, but the second highest speed. Okay, we gotta slow down. We're going way too fast. Oh yeah, and gotta slow down like 45. Alright, I'll keep my cruise control at 50. I gotta, like... going down to 35. Yeah, I'll turn it right now. say it's a little early for the blinker, but don't turn red before I get there, or I'm gonna get mad. Oh, you son of a gun. Yeah, I knew that was coming. Oh, oh you little sneaky. Whatever. I'm gonna pull over. I'm gonna, I'm gonna disable my mic for now because do some other stuff. I'm gonna talk in a call, and I don't think they want their voices. So yeah, that's all for now. I will be still streaming, but just no voice. And if you talk in the stream, I will reply.
Dale, puto. You